for 10 years now. I started on a street corner in Los Angeles, California, and worked my way up the ranks in Hollywood, and even got to go to red carpets and meet celebrities and have my own talk show in Hollywood. And it has branched out to where I just kind of go on the internet and from my own space, and I can reach all over the place. So it's really cool. I have nothing but good intentions with my mission of just promoting good vibes and putting good messages, positive humanitarian universal messages out in the world. I love to do my talk show as a platform to raise consciousness, give advice, and have great guests who are doing good things in the world to share their light. It's a passion of mine. And I wanted to just go over a few updates really quick. My 10-year anniversary of being the Street Angel is August 17th. So I'm going to have a little birthday party for the Street Angel because it's kind of like a milestone for me. So if you're local to San Antonio, please come join me. I would love to just hang out, and maybe we could raise some donations for the homeless shelter. I'll be collecting stuff to drop off there like I've done in the past. So come have a drink with me and it'll be fun. Maybe get some food. August 17th, I'll be posting a flyer. If you want more information, just message me. I want to go over really quick. A super amazing announcement is my book is finally finished and live on Amazon, which just happened on Sunday afternoon. It's kind of epic because it's actually been something I've worked on since 2018. On and off. I just got to make sure it's been on and off because I went through a lot of stuff. I moved, my sister died. That's why I was kind of a long coming project. But here's a picture of the cover, and this is how it'll look on Amazon when you see it. An Angel's Guide to Manifesting Your Dreams and Romantic Relationship. It's like an adult playbook for planning your life with bucket list stuff and things meditation instructions for you to manifest things into your reality. Here's the back cover. So go check it out. It's right now it's $29.99 on Amazon. So you'll be supporting my mission. I also have my Epic Healing CD for sale on my website, thestreetangel.com. It clears your chakras and helps you get rid of old baggage and trauma, clears your energy and your aura. And my beautiful romantic angel card deck for your guidance of your relationships and dating. So let's see. How do I get rid of that now? I'm like, okay. I'm still learning the StreamYard stuff. Thank you for bearing with me. So I have a really cool guest today. I met him in Mount Shasta at a epic big conference. It was a huge opportunity for me. It was such a blessing. I just got to shout out to Rob Potter, who I met in Sedona, and he just invited me to be a speaker and on a panel of young visionaries at his conference in Mount Shasta. So I go, and I met some epic, amazing people. I had all kinds of support. You know how good it is to feel seen and accepted and supported with a bunch of other people, a whole audience of people that accepted and appreciated me. It was so nice. And so I got to meet this guy named Isaac Mars, and I'm going to bring him in. Hi, Isaac.
Hey, Mandelyn. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so grateful that you could make some time to be on the show. I know you're a busy guy. He just released a book as well, and it's called Unity Theory. So I actually have a picture of us when we met. That's for the audience to check out. So he has a really cool banner showing off his book cover here, and we both had our signs there. He had one that says, "I love you unconditionally."
Yeah, that wasn't planned at all, too. So that was kind of fun.
Super cool. Because I've had a big poster before that said, you are loved unconditionally and all is forgiven. So it was a cool moment. I was like, I got to have this guy on my show. We were also on a panel together of young visionaries. I got some pictures of that. And he was actually talking or something.
Yeah, that's a great photo of me.
Yeah, MC. And so, yeah, just a few photos. I had somebody in the audience, I asked him, hey, can you take some pictures? So that's how that happened. Mm-hmm. So that was cool. But yeah, I wanted to have Isaac on the show because he's very well spoken, and I can tell you're of a higher like a high intelligence. You just a brilliant mind. I'd love to hear more about, your enlightening process or your book, however you want to get started with introducing you.
Sure. Yeah. And again, it's an honor to be on your show, Mandolin. I really appreciate everything that you do as the street angel and how you bring love, awareness, and compassion to the world. It is very inspiring, and we need more females, more women that are ready to step into their power, into their roles. So I really appreciate that about you.
Thank
Uh,
you.
for me in my journey, I actually had my awakening last January in 2021. And for me, it was a very divine intervention type of experience in which everything just immediately shifted like that, just suddenly in my life. And originally, I was writing a science fiction novel in which I was attempting to make extremely hyper realistic. I wanted to describe to my readers a fictionally digestible way of viewing time so that I could implement time travel into the story's plot. However, when I was researching exactly how time works in our reality, I started stumbling across the teachings of Albert Einstein in the theory of relativity. And I also learned that most of mainstream science and physics and even quantum theory all reports that all of time happens at once, that linear time as we know it is simply an illusion. And so I started to create these thought experiments in which how I would explain time to account for all of it happening at once. And I realized in an instant, I was like, oh my gosh, this must be how it works because it's the only logical conclusion. And I realized that the information that I came across or I uncovered through my own internal guidance was something that could actually be applicable in every person's life in this modern era that we live in. And so I realized that if I were to follow my heart and be the person that I've always wanted to be, it would be to share that information with as much people as possible because it was extremely liberating. At first, it was a little bit scary because I even dove into concepts such as free will, which I currently view as a paradox, which, in short, both does and does not exist depending on the philosophical perspective that we examine it. And so at first it was a little scary for me, but then I was like, wait a second, this is the most liberating thing ever. And I started to believe in things like fate and destiny. And I started coming up with ways to describe that I haven't heard from anybody else. And I realized, there was really something to it. And I just followed my heart, set out on an adventure. And here I am, just following the flow of the universe, seeing synchronicities and angel numbers left and right,
I love
which I'm sure you're familiar with. So,
all the time.
yeah. And and so I was synchronistically guided to these certain experiences. One of which, if we end up talking about it, I did my very best as some normal average person to get in contact with Elon Musk at Tesla, or at least someone that worked for him. And I ended up in jail over the situation, and that was a very interesting experience.
What?
Um, but I was following my intuition in my heart, no matter where it led me. If it led me straight into the lion's den, that's where I was going because my comprehension of reality showed me that I could only succeed if that's what I truly resonated at and believed in within my being. And so all these synchronistic meetings and interactions led me down this rabbit hole that eventually created the inspiration for Unity Theory, the book that I wrote.
Mhm.
And I ended up writing, I started writing in late August, early September of last year, right after I met Rob Potter for the first time and helped him with his conference in that summer. And I just kept writing until about March 19th, I believe, of this year, which was a pretty big uh, date in terms of astrology and numerology for me. And I'd finished it right then and just got it out on the internet, started distributing it digitally, and got everything together within the next couple of weeks to have physical copies. And ever since then, it's just been door after door opening. So
That's
here we
amazing.
are.
And that's good. I mean, I feel like when you follow what you're meant to be doing and like you producing in the book, then God starts opening the doors for you, giving you breadcrumbs to share your knowledge and share your product, because that's what we're meant to do, right? God gives us these divine ideas that are planted in our brains, and then we create it into reality, and then we're meant to share it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
so that's what you've been doing. And it looked like you sold quite a few books at the conference. Congratulations.
Thank
It looked
you.
like you were sold out by the end of it.
Yeah, I was very abundant in that
Good.
moment, and I was just so appreciative for how well I was received. I mean, I
Me
I
too.
just I was floored. So
Doesn't feel good to be just seen and accepted by, like, I call it tribe, like
yeah, for
like
sure.
people of our same wavelength.
Yeah, soul
And
family.
yeah, and it's like food for our soul. And that's how it felt, like a B12 shot in the arm, you know? So it was really nice. And it was, yeah, when we were on the panel, I was like, I know I missed part of what you said because I literally like had to go to the bathroom in the middle of it, which sucked. But I was like, we were on there for like 2 hours.
Yeah,
So
I did the same thing. No worries.
but what I did hear of you speak, I was like, I gotta have this guy on my show. He articulates very well, and I appreciate when people are really good at communication skills. So,
Hmm.
I would love to hear more of your thoughts on the free will thing that you mentioned earlier, like in the fate. Like, what are your divine higher consciousness thoughts around that?
Sure, sure. So one topic that I wanted to discuss is chrono-concurrency, which is not a normal term that you would find in on the internet even. It's something that I sort of coined myself. And what it simply means is chrono, meaning time, and concurrency, meaning multiple events happening at once. So
Mm,
that is the way that we experience linear time. In order for us to have a story from beginning to end, we must already have all the moments through which our consciousness shifts through. And so, one person that I know explained it like a DVD. So the whole DVD has the movie on it already. But where you put the laser on the DVD is the part of the story that you're experiencing.
mm,
So the way that I explain time to make pretty simple sense, although it's still kind of abstract, is that since all of time happens at once, you can take an observer that's sitting in front of a mirror, right? So here's the observer, here's the mirror that they're standing in front of, and the observer makes sense for representing the present moment in this thought experiment because the observer can move around and the present moment is always in flux, right? It's always transforming. And so they're looking into their past, which is represented by a mirror, because we often literally say that we reflect on our past. And so both the present moment and their past are happening at the same time because time is chronoconcurrent. And
mm.
so I thought if we're on a timeline, like we often say, then there must be another mirror behind the present moment. So picture my face as the present moment now. And so my face in between these two mirrors, representing the past and the future, would be infinitely multiplied. You've probably seen that as a kid growing up when you put two mirrors together and the reflection was infinitely multiplied both ways as far as the light could project into that space.
But we
And
could
so,
see.
you're right. And so it would still continue to infinitely multiply, just in a way that we can't see with our physical eyes. And so, what that said to me is that there were infinite moments on a single timeline in which they all simultaneously exist, and it's our awareness that's shifting through them. Well, from that single timeline perspective, which is the way I don't know about everybody else on planet Earth, but that's the way I live my life. I can't seemingly go back and change something that happened in my past. It's permanent. Well, from that perspective, the future is just as permanent as the past is. And then that's when I was like, oh, crap. Like, that means there's no free will from that perspective, from the perspective of a single timeline. And so I thought, okay, I know there's free will. I feel it in my core that free will does exist. So how can I explain this? And so I started thinking in terms of polarities. So Alan Watts used to talk about how you can't understand black unless you know what white is. You can't know what a front is unless you know what a back is as well. And it's the same for every other polarity, you know, rough and smooth, sweet and sour.
Hot and cold.
Right, exactly. And so I was thinking, in order to understand that I'm going down, let's say, the right road on a forked road where it splits off into two, I need to have some minimal awareness, maybe unconsciously, what it's like to go down the left fork in the road too. So that creates two timelines, two situations in which I would have had no free will, let's say. But then I thought, you know, that's just for that one simple choice. What about all the other infinite choices that we could ever have? And I
Yep.
took those two mirrors and I infinitely multiplied them around the present moment, creating a sphere. And that sphere was a perfect representation of symmetrical unity, because from the center point of a sphere, you can explore an infinite number of points that are on the sphere's surface. You just go zooming in further and further and further and further into, you know, greater decimals. And so that means there would essentially be an infinite number of timelines in order for there to be free will and for us to experience time in the way that we do in a linear manner as a story. And that was like, boom, because then I thought, if that's how it is, which it seems to be the only logical explanation, then that means if you can imagine something, not only is it possible, it already exists in all of these infinite realities. All the elves are real, the fairies, the dragons, Star Wars, all of it is real. When we're looking into a movie or a TV show through our screen, we're looking through a window into another infinite reality that already is just as real as this one. And so I realized that the impossible is possible, which is a tagline that I put on the front of my book. And once I realized this and I went through some more deductive reasoning, I realized that reality itself is determined by the collective consciousness of the, let's say, bubble reality that we're currently experiencing. So on this planet, the collective consciousness, the collective experience is determined by what each human being on the entire planet believes, lives, um, you know, consumes in terms of the movies and TV shows they watch, and all of it contributes to what we're experiencing right now, which blew everything open for me because I started learning about the universal laws. And in one of the universal laws, the law of correspondence, it talks about that what we think creates our reality. And I thought, wow, if you look out into mainstream society, what is it full of? Stuff that makes us afraid, stuff that makes us super lustful, or, you know, a ton of violent imagery in movies and TV shows. And I realized that all of this is an energy, because everything is energy, frequency, and vibration, that manifests into a reality that perpetuates suffering. So essentially, kind of backtracking a little bit, what I'm saying is we now have a clear understanding of how this reality got so out of hand, and we have a clear path forward on the individual level on what we can do to create a reality where there is no suffering, where, you know, the limitations of what we experience are up to our imagination, and that every class, nation, color, creed can all unite under one banner, which is universal consciousness itself. Knowing that we live in a holographic reality, or a holodynamic reality, as I like to put it, and that every part of that reality contains the whole. So I know I just kind of blasted you with a fire hose of information there, but
Yeah.
that's what I learned in my theories.
Some of the things that came to me while you were talking was, in fact, it was something I was thinking about earlier today, is how dreams are like a real experience. Because, you know, there's been certain dreams I've had in my life that have, I wake up and they've stuck with me forever. You know, it's a real experience, even if it isn't what we perceive to be happening in our physical reality, but it might leave an emotional or mental impression or visual impression that we carry forever. Like, And one drastic example was like I dreamt one time a dog bit my hand, and I woke up and my hand physically hurt. And from the dream. So it's like it's that imprint of that moment that I dreamed stayed with me in my waking reality. So
Mhm.
that was really weird. And it's gotten me thinking about dreams as other, some sort of other dimensions. And, like you said, everything's vibration and frequency. It's like when we go to sleep, our brain goes into different waves. And, we're in different dimensions or frequencies that we may not understand, but for whatever reason, we're having these other experiences when we sleep.
Absolutely. And what I'm explaining essentially is those dreams are just as real as this reality. The thing is, we have agreed to come back to this dream over and over again every time we go to sleep and wake up. And because of that, it seems more real, relatively speaking, than the dreams we have at night. But the thing is, when it comes down to it, everything's energy, frequency, and vibration. So that's why when we learn more about Eastern philosophy and Vedic tradition and all these different ways of viewing reality, they often say reality itself is a dream. So,
Yeah, I've heard that before. So on your website, it says you're a theoretical physicist. What do you mean by that? What does that mean?
so I absolutely subscribe to the theory of relativity by Albert Einstein. So everything is relative. So it's all based on what we believe and what we view on the personal individual level. But for me, to be a theoretical physicist is to be able to describe in philosophical and linguistic terms how reality works on the fundamental level. In my personal opinion, I would rather call myself a theoretical energeticist because that's more accurate, but it does not roll off the tongue. So that's why I'm sticking with theoretical physicist, because people, for the most part, that watch TV shows and movies that learn about this type of science, they can sort of grasp at what it means. I also joked recently that I should just call myself a metaphysicist because that's what it is. It's beyond the physical. In truth, what I essentially believe and what I explain in my book is that there is no physical reality. It's all energy, it's all frequency, it's all vibration. What we're seeing is energy moving. And in fact, um, some scientists that reported in uh, a specific, I'm trying to word this correctly so this video doesn't get flagged, a specific document that was declassified called the gateway process. Some scientists claimed that infinity would not be visible because infinity has nowhere else to move to, meaning that it would not be in motion, it would not be vibrating, therefore we would pass right through it. The only reason that I can see my hand right now is because the energy in the atoms are vibrating in a tiny little solar system in every single atom. So,
Yeah, there was a movie I saw, and it said, if we move something infinitely fast or extremely fast, it disappears. So it's like literally our concept of time that make us exist, like slowing it down or whatever. Like we exist in some sort of form of time in space that gives us our context.
mhm.
Very interesting. So it's like our lifespan and our concept of a day is how we're experiencing time and like reality. And I don't know, I feel like everything about life is just we're trying to figure out who are we, what are we here, like what is all this, like where did
Right.
we come from, what's the right way to live. I feel like we could spend our whole life guessing about that and reading endless material, and it's just interesting. I mean, life
Yeah,
is
it's,
interesting.
I have a few things to say about that. One thing is I just want to uh, backtrack a little bit because I realized I didn't fully explain the whole free will paradox. The other side of the free will paradox is that once I found out there were infinite timelines, then I realized we could shift timelines, and that's how we still preserve free will. And so I just wanted to mention that for your viewers, just in case there was any confusion. And then the interesting thing about reality is what we also learn in spirituality, which is interesting because unity theory, the scientific perspective on reality, also reports the same thing, is that everything just is. There is no right, there is no wrong. So that when we get caught up in what's the right way of living, what are we doing? We're feeding anxiety. We're feeding fear. And what fear essentially is, in simple terms, is low, slow vibrating energy. And that slow vibrating energy manifests in things that are not conducive for harmony, for growth, for prosperity, for abundance. It manifests in uh, distorted frequencies that cause pain, cause suffering, cause division, separation. And we can see these in, I believe it was Dr. Emoto's water experiments, where he would take a droplet of water and freeze it while certain intentions were being imbued into that water droplet. And when people would hate the water would freeze into asymmetrical, sort of ugly looking formations. Well, when people would pray or give love to the water droplet, then they'd freeze it and it would be a perfect, beautiful, harmonic
Like,
snowflake.
I've heard of this experiment. It's very fascinating. Same thing with the music. A heart rock and roll was a shattered pattern of frozen water, whereas beautiful instrumental kind of soft music created the beautiful snowflake pattern. So it's still creating, it's just different forms, and some looks chaotic and the other looks more harmonious.
Exactly.
And I'd love to share a quick story related to your neutrality statement. One time I was in my apartment in Portland, Oregon, when I lived there, and I was not on any kind of substance, drug, or alcohol at all. For some reason, God or Holy Spirit just decided they were going to take me to a space mentally where I just laid on my bed awake, and I was taken kind of where I was above the earth in a way, like
Mm-hmm.
not out of the earth, but just in a higher space, like overseeing it like from the sky, and everything was very small. And I had this divine download that everything on earth is in this new neutrality space, that everything is allowed to exist simply because it can. And it was a very cool moment of just a divine download for no apparent reason in the world, just a droplet of higher consciousness given to me. And then there was this other story I wanted to share related to your kind of your free will perspective you shared. I was doing a meditation with this really high level healer guy. He's been trained in a Buddhist temple, and he does these special meditations. I was doing one on the phone with him, and he was walking me mentally in this meditation through what he called portals. And I'm going through these portals, and all of a sudden he like clapped his hands really loud. And when he did that, I was shifted to this space where I was on this line, and it was like I was on the line of the yin yang symbol, and ahead of me was the future, but it was all white, kind of like that Matrix moment in the movie The Matrix, where he's standing and it's all white all around him, nothing, just nothingness but white. And behind me, which was the black side of the yin yang, that it was the shadow, was like the past. It was like everything that we've gone through, everything we've been through was in the shadow. And I was on the line. And it was almost like this awareness of the future was blank, and it was just going to create as we move along in time. It was very interesting, just these moments that I've had personally in my life that just were just like, you can just sit there and kind of process and contemplate, what did that mean? Like, this is so cool. Like, just big stuff.
Yeah, those are both beautiful stories. And I think it brings up a really good point that I was sort of alluding to earlier, which is we need both sides of the yin and the yang to experience this reality. If everything was just high vibration, then what would the point be? There would be no motion, there would be no transformation. Everything would just be like wallflowers and that's it. And, end of story. But with the yin and the yang, we have these rising experiences and these falling experiences in which the dark side gets to sort of take reign of the story, and then it sets up all these things for these different plots and these different experiences for all of our different characters to experience. And the greatest thing about all of it is that as fractals of the infinite, we are also eternal, meaning that everything is always safe 100% of the time. As I think it was Bashar, who is a being that's channeled by Daryl Anka, once said, I think it was him. I could be wrong on that, but they said dying is perfectly safe. It's like taking off a tight shoe, and that's what's reported in science. If energy, frequency, and vibration can't, um, or if energy can't be created nor destroyed, then that means neither can we. You
I
know,
think
we have our.
oh, I'm
Go ahead.
sorry. Oh, I was gonna say, I think people just really fear having a traumatic, painful death. Like,
I always hear that, but then what we learn in unity theory is that if what we put out is exactly what we get back, then the fear of that traumatic death is exactly what would cause it.
hmm,
It's a self fulfilling prophecy. That's why in my book, I explain there is no right way to live, there's no correct way to live. But if you want to live the most abundant, prosperous, peaceful, happy, serene, blissful life, choose unconditional love at every opportunity. First, towards ourselves within our own mind and the way we treat ourselves, and then towards everyone and everything else with the higher awareness, knowing that in order for this experience to unfold, everything is us. We are not foreign organisms in some spooky environment. We are the organism and the environment together. And if you get abstract with it, you could say there are no organisms. It's just the environment experiencing itself, it's the universe experiencing itself. And so, since everything is us, why would we, with that awareness, treat anything with hatred or fear or disgust or anything like that? Because then that's just a part of ourselves that we're not accepting.
mm,
So,
very interesting. Yeah, in fact, I can relate to that as well because there was one time I went to go meditate in just a field of grass and just have a moment with God. And I was going through a lot of difficult crap, which seems to be constant. And anyway, I was meditating. I was like, why do we go through such hard things? I was asking verbally out loud, why do we go through these hard things, and why do I go through this? And the divine answer that I got right back, like telepathy, was so that you learn to love as I do,
mm.
unconditionally. That was the answer. We're just meant to try to learn and evolve to love as God loves. And it's very hard when you're human and you were raised with these judgments, and we have eyes, and we judge other people how they look. And I gotta say, it's really hard when in the behavior department, because
Mhm.
that's where I would say I would struggle, because I wouldn't want to love somebody's bad behaviors unconditionally, especially if they're treating me badly. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And
My
I want to be clear that a lot of people get lost in the idea that, oh, unconditional love is a trap, quote unquote, because if I unconditionally love someone, I'm just going to keep letting them abuse me. And
right.
that is not the case.
Well, how
That
do
is
you deal
not.
with it?
What's that?
How do you deal with it?
So, in order to unconditionally love others, we must learn to unconditionally love ourselves first. So, if I am unconditionally loving myself, and let's say I have a friend who starts to be really abusive or really nasty in our relationship, if I really unconditionally love myself, would I put myself in the scenario over and over again where they have that opportunity to put that energy out onto me? No, I wouldn't let that happen. I would say, you know what, Isaac, it's time to walk away from this person and to continue to love them and hold them in their highest, but know that I deserve better in my immediate reality. And so unconditional love is only empowering. Anybody that says, in my perspective, and with anything that I say to you and the viewers, only take what resonates and disregard what doesn't. But if something is of unconditional love, it is only empowering. It would never cause anyone to be a victim. it can only uplift and heal everything and everyone, because that's what true unconditional love is. It's the highest vibration in existence. And I feel, and this is your experience, so again, feel free to disregard, but I feel like that message that you got was what I'm essentially saying, to remember how to love like the universe does, because that is where our true power lies. And when we do that, the impossible is possible. There was a girl in China that was reported to be able to walk on a stage, and everybody in the audience would be holding a rosebud. And the girl, because she was so high vibrational and full of so much love, she would wave her hand across the audience, and then all of the roses would suddenly bloom instantaneously, because she had that ability to share that amount of unconditional love with those living beings, those roses. And the second that any sort of outside force tried to force her to do that on command, she couldn't do it anymore because she was in fear. And so the more people that start to embody this unconditional love, again, I want to reiterate, first towards ourselves and then towards everyone else, the more our collective consciousness will rise. And the TV shows and the movies that some people call predictive programming, I call prophetic programming. That prophetic programming will finally manifest in this reality, to the extent where we're going to see people flying. We're going to see people walking through walls and teleporting. We're going to see the X-Men and the Marvel Avengers and the superheroes of this age. And it's going to be very real, and it's going to be a huge shift.
That's cool. So, uh, just to shift gears really quick,
Sure.
what is your backstory of why you call yourself the Crimson Eagle?
So there are a lot of reasons, specifically signs and synchronicities in my life, but the easiest explanation is that what I do is I bridge the spiritual with the material. I bridge the etheric with the earthly. So in spiritual practices, specifically, I believe in Native American tradition, the eagle is representative of spirituality itself. And to me, it's also having that higher perspective where you can see the whole picture. And that's something that was cause that was a huge catalyst, I should say, for my awakening. And so the fact that I could see that big picture led me to resonating with that eagle energy. So I started seeing eagle synchronicities everywhere. And before my awakening, I was wearing this red jacket. And I actually met my true love while I was wearing that red jacket. And she told me in our relationship that she had so many past life memories or parallel life memories in dreams in which she was with her true love and he was wearing a red jacket. And so,
Cool.
yeah, it was really, really interesting. But because of the dynamic in the relationship, I needed to unconditionally love myself first. And so I had to walk away, because there was some stuff going on that I knew that I didn't deserve. And so that's when I started following my heart. That's when I started working on my science fiction novel. And then I got the download for Unity Theory. And so the color red was really important to me. And it just happened to be the color of the root chakra, which is the earthly chakra.
Mhm.
And so it's bridging, again, spirituality, the eagle, to the earthly realm, the red root chakra.
That's
And that just kind of became my persona.
I like it. I tried to put that as a background image. You just can't really like see it, the eagle's face, but it's an eagle back behind us.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, how do we shift timelines? Because you mentioned that.
Well, the short answer is you're doing it right now. We're always shifting timelines because that's the only way that we can experience the story. Every moment is technically its own timeline. And then the imagination of how that one particular timeline would go from, let's say, the alleged Big Bang to the end of creation, if that's something that we can conceive of. In truth, it's all still happening and it all will always be happening. For example, you and I, Mandelyn, have been talking on this show for eternity. and we will always be talking on the show for eternity because it's many of the infinite moments that already exist. But the thing is, our awareness, what we're actually experiencing, shifts to other experiences that we're going towards in our linear life. So, um, forgive my airy-headedness. What was the original question?
Oh, you answered it. It was about the timeline. How do we shift timeline?
Yeah, and so we can also do that at the collective level, and that's something that we see, and those are huge shifts. So, for example, have you ever heard of the Mandela effect?
Yes.
Yeah, so in my reality, Nelson Mandela had already died long before I was born. And then at some point in my life, somebody was talking about it, and I'm like, "What? Wasn't that guy dead?" And sure enough, in this timeline, he lived until 2013, meaning that either millions of Mandela effect experiencers that remember him dying in the 1980s all hallucinated the same hallucination, or the more scientific and logical explanation is our entire collective consciousness here on Earth shifted timelines into a timeline in which it was more beneficial for him to have lived until 2013.
Wow.
So that's one example, and it's starting to happen like crazy. Like my close friend Nathan Lindsay, who's Vibes and Frequencies on YouTube. Some people call him the Moldavite guy because he talked about Moldavite before it even got big. He has this experience all the time. He's constantly reality shifting, and I'm pretty sure he's made a bunch of YouTube videos about it too. Um, but for me personally, it's happened in where even the wording in the primary video I made as a promotional video for Unity Theory has changed. So I originally had the wording in the ending sort of information on the the end of the video. There's just some text that pops up, and originally I said agents of truth. Well, I found out that agent, the root words of agent is a and gent, meaning no gentleman. So if you're an agent, that means you're not a gentleman or a gentlewoman. It means that you're not a friend. And so I was like, oh man, I really want to go change that, but I'd have to upload it and like redo everything. I'm just going to leave it. Well, in this current timeline, it says warriors of truth. So I never changed that in my experience, in my reality, yet it's changed. And so that tells me that the timeline shifting is happening at an even increasing rate right now. And the way that I understand that in my reality is that all of these infinite timelines are starting to converge into, some would say, one timeline, but since every piece of the infinite is infinite, I would say it's an infinite number of timelines in which all of those infinite versions of us reach our fullest potential and come together. So there's this beautiful movie called Everything Everywhere All at Once, and they kind of explain it. They use different wording than I would, and they don't necessarily say infinite realities or timelines, but what they do a good job of showing is that all these different versions of us, for example, I've never taken kung fu or martial arts in this embodiment, but I know that there is an Isaac Mars in the infinite realities that has mastered kung fu and martial arts. And so as we start to merge all these timelines, I will eventually gain those gifts, and I'll be able to use them at will, fully conscious of my knowing of how to use them. And so
That's
that's why we're going to see superheroes, whatever you want to call them, in the near future.
I also like, how you said, like where our talk show is infinite. Like it's also like when people make movies. I mean, those movies exist forever, and I go and rewatch some of my old movies, and then it's like reliving it again, and it's kind of like that,
Yep.
where it's gonna always be having been created. It's solidified as a thing that happened in reality or in life or creation,
Mm-hmm.
and it's there. So it's really cool. You live in Sedona, right?
I do. So I live in Sedona for most of the year, Sedona, Arizona, which I really recommend anybody watching that hasn't been there, that is even remotely spiritual. I really recommend them coming out and experiencing it for themselves because it's really not something you can put into words. But I
I love
lived there.
Sedona.
What's that?
I love Sedona.
Yeah.
I want
It's
to live there somehow, some way for a little while, or I don't know. I don't know how to manifest it, but I have the desire to try it out.
oh well, we can work together. I'm here for all, and trust me, you can manifest everything that you could ever want. So the more that we give ourselves and each other permission to be able to do that, the more we'll see it happen. And the more we see it happen, it creates this exponential shift where it's like, oh my gosh, it really worked. And now I know it's going to work. So then it works even more. And now it's just constantly working. And then we get all fired up and just life is so beautiful. So absolutely, if you feel like you want to come to Sedona, we'll figure it out.
Well,
But
I'm a shaman healer, and I do a lot of that type of work. You know, energy clearing, aura, chakra healing, multi-vibrational sound therapy tools, shaman prayer tools. Like I do all this cool stuff, as well as like I coach each person if they want to talk about their life. So I'm like a certified health coach and life coach and love coach. I went through the whole love coach academy and the health coach academy. So it's like I also do that as needed. I do angel card readings, so it's like I'd fit in so good.
absolutely.
I love Sedona because when I go there, it's like tribe. You know,
Mhm.
everybody's like, oh, they love the wings and like they support it. It's just really cool, and not to mention the rock formations are just breathtaking. You're just like, how how are these gorgeous rocks and here like in this, I don't know, it's just breathtakingly beautiful there, and you can feel the higher vibrational difference of just being there.
Mhm.
It's really cool. In fact, I can actually feel a shift just being in Phoenix too. Like just flying there, I feel
Mhm.
different. But then
Mhm.
once you get out into Sedona, which is of course even higher elevation, and the just the feeling of the vibration is higher. It's really really cool.
Absolutely. I eventually am going to be manifesting a scientific laboratory there because the energy is so profound and so magnetic and attractive and empowering and magnifying. I mean, there's just so many beautiful uh, adjectives to describe it with. It would be foolish not to um, take that opportunity and use it to benefit the world. Um, so I'm so sorry. I'm getting a phone call.
Oh, I was wondering what that music was.
Here we go. Just throwing that across the room. Um, and so, yeah, Sedona is an amazing place.
How long have you been there?
I've been there. I've been there for about a year, and the thing is, with the way that I live my life, I don't really get along that well in the super extreme heat. So in the summer, I kind of escape away to Mount Shasta, which is perfect with Rob's conferences, and um, it's just an opportunity for me to reset. There's a lot of people that talk about this sort of triangular set of ley lines that link Sedona, Mount Shasta, and Hawaii together.
Mm,
So I know that someday, even though I haven't been there yet in this embodiment, I will eventually get out to Hawaii and feel that energy. But for me, I've just been, holding down the fort, going back and forth between Sedona and Mount Shasta. And
I
that's where
feel
I'm at
lucky.
right now.
I've got to go to all three, and yes, Hawaii does have. It's a very chill, relaxed vibe, which I guess is why you see people strutting around in their Hawaiian t-shirts and their flip flops. It's just like a very chill, like you need to have your tiki drink and just be like walking meditation chill. Like that's the Hawaiian vibe.
Right. I hear there's a lot of Lemurian energy there too.
I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah, I mean
Mhm.
it's very tropical, and it's. I love Mount Shasta's energy too. You know, the forest and the crystal lake I went and got in, and a very clean and pure feeling there, and gentle, kind of a love vibe. Whereas I feel like Sedona is just this high vibe, high consciousness feeling, and so that's the difference between the three of how I would describe the three different energies and places, which
Mm,
is cool. I love them all.
yeah. And for me personally, what I've learned attracted me to Sedona and Mount Shasta is specifically the vibration. I mentioned earlier the universal laws, with the law of correspondence being one of them. Well, there's also the law of attraction and repulsion. And so, to all the star seeds out there that are watching this, I really implore for them to learn and memorize the universal laws, because when we stay stuck in our original places, like where we were born, where we grew up, and we have our awakening, what's happening is that we're getting this huge shift in vibration, this huge shift in awareness. And if we stay in those places, it can lead to a lot of difficulties, because everybody around us will start to treat us differently. They'll start to, pull the Agent Smith card, like in the Matrix movie, and they'll start to alienate us and say we're crazy and all these things. But really, at the end of the day, with how psychology works for humanity, is that they're just projecting. They're the ones living in a lie, believing in an illusion that's not beneficial for them or anyone that they know and love, yet they're still believing in it because it's all that they've ever known. And that's the Agent Smith programming. And so, in my experience, I grew up between Ann Arbor and Detroit in a suburb. And I ended up moving to Ann Arbor right before my awakening. And when I was there, it just wasn't resonant. And I was like, okay, I got to get out of here. And so I followed my heart and I followed the vibration. And after I left, I was led to all these different points across the United States. And that's when I really started to purge a lot of the fear that I was holding on to my whole life, because, my own family, they looked at me like I was schizophrenic or, you know, nuts. And they just didn't understand. And I think that all the star seeds and light workers out there that are going through those hardships need to hear that it's normal to experience that, but we get to choose if we're going to continue experiencing that. So when that happened for me, I mean, my own family called the police on me to try and get me thrown away into a psych ward. I was surrounded by police and had a really scary situation there. And then when I was following my heart, like I said, I ended up in jail just trying to talk to someone at the front gate of Tesla Giga Texas in Austin. And so we need to be able to face these things with courage and fearlessness, but to know that it's all part of the process, because the only way that we can transform that energy into a higher vibration is to experience it. And that's what happens when we experience dis-ease or an accident, is we're taking all that energy. We could call it karmic energy, which to me, it's not some, you know, score system. It's just simply the energy we're holding on to in the moment. And that energy can be passed down from parent to child and parent to child. And that's what we call ancestral karma. But really, all it is it's this pattern that has been passed down energetically, and it can be transmuted, transformed, completed, and overcome in one lifetime by one individual. All it takes is that courage. But I
Yeah,
don't know. I just kind of word vomited there, but if you have any questions from what I just shared, let me
I
know.
have a poster about that. Can you see?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, make your courage greater than your fears. Be brave. Yeah, so I like to take that one out sometimes just to remind people to be yourself, do what you got to do in the world. Like, I would say for the highest good of all, for the highest and best,
Mm-hmm.
I promote don't harm others, be kind, but God has created infinite things, and I don't know. There's stuff I can't understand and I don't like, but I don't have higher enough brain to contemplate why everything exists, and we don't even have to go there. But I would like to promote that you do have a YouTube channel and you have a cool 6-minute video on unity theory that people can go listen to and just absorb. Because I listened to it. It was really cool. I mean, some of the stuff you share, people pretty much need to watch it a few times. That way you can just absorb,
Mm-hmm.
and get a little bit more each time, I think.
Fair
Some
enough.
stuff is very high level for people, and they might not be able to absorb a first pass
Mm-hmm.
because maybe.
I do my best to try and make it as easily accessible to everyone, of every language, of every situation. Well, language is a bit more difficult, but you know what I'm saying. What my intention is is to bring this awareness to everyone because we all deserve it. We all deserve at least the option and the awareness to know that we can choose what we're experiencing. And yeah, that anybody that's watching this, please watch that 6 or 7 minute video I made on unity theory. It just explains how it's important, how it's going to help all of us, and how we can use this science, this knowledge in our own individual lives right now. So I appreciate
Cool.
that.
Wait, what did I just do? Okay. I was like trying to pull up the pictures, but I don't think I have a picture of your book on there. But at least
Uh,
just
I have a picture on mine. Am I able to share from here?
I have no idea.
I
you
can try. Should I try?
can try. And while you're doing that, I forgot to announce that I did get to be on a talk show on Sunday. I was supposed to say this at the beginning of my show, but it was like I got to be on the Awakening World, hosted by Scott Katamis, and just basically talk about how to be how what it's like being an Earth Angel and being of service and stuff like that. So, any
Hmm.
luck with your book?
I think so. It says, yeah, it's making me open system preferences. It's figuring it out. But again, I just wanted to bring awareness to the fact that it was really great to meet you at the conference. I mean, I think our vibrations might be on a very similar frequency because I think you were like one of the first people I met. You were walking in, and I ended up walking in with you with my brother.
That's cool. Yeah. And I love how that synchronicity, that kind of stuff happens. And I definitely, you stood out to me as someone to listen to and be intrigued by. And you have a lot of good stuff to share just naturally.
Oh, thank
So
you.
I like that you say, your mission is to bring universal knowledge to humanity and unite under the unifying nature of consciousness that we are all one.
Hmm.
It's on your website. So
Well,
everybody, if you want to check them out, thecrimsoneagle.com. Can people buy your book there or Amazon, or how do people buy it?
yeah, so I was actually guided intuitively for some reason to stay away from Amazon, and it's just I don't necessarily have anything against Amazon. I know that there's a lot of allegations about these big corporations, and really I'm not even going to get into that. For me, it was just something that just didn't feel resonant. So I decided to share this information with the world through my website. So if anybody is interested in Unity Theory, please know that it's very simple in the sense that it's very short to read. It does have some abstract concepts, but I've made it as um, easy for everyone to sort of integrate as possible. And they can get the download for free, or if they have some abundance, they are more than welcome to share a love donation through PayPal, um, Venmo, or Cash App. But it's not necessary. The main thing is to get this information out to everyone and to know that the more that we talk about this, the more that we share this information, the more that we just stand in our authenticity, the more the world wakes up, the more children we can help rescue from these child trafficking systems, the more that we can expose the mechanisms of control and fear for what they are, and we can finally manifest heaven on earth. I mean, it's about time, I'd say.
That would be wonderful. Yeah. And there you put this other quote on your website, said, with heart consciousness we can transcend the illusion of separation. The source of all universal consciousness is love.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
really
And the source of all suffering is the illusion of separation. I mean, in a holodynamic universe, I cannot be separate from you. Therefore, I have to be interconnected to you. And once we learn more about the science, we learn that we are each other. When I'm looking at you, I'm looking at you, looking at me, looking at you, looking at me infinitely. And we're this mirror for each other. So once we remember that, there's no reason that we would ever mistreat each other anymore. So I'm ready to shatter the illusion of separation, no matter where it takes me, no matter what I'm up against. I'm gonna stand up and do what I feel is best for the all in
Mhm.
my perspective. So
Yeah, and just speak about it and share it and as much as you can, really. And on a
exactly.
fun side note, Rob Potter and Dr. Raymond Keller, they both think, they told me they think I'm Venusian, which is cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they're like, well, you're what you're doing and your mission and like the way you know, I was like, that's cool, you know. It resonates with me. I mean, I wouldn't doubt it. Like my activation was pretty like galactic in nature, so like it
Mhm.
hit me and I'm like, boom, you know.
Yeah, and you're wearing a freaking crown of crystals right now, so that's pretty galactic.
And it's actually a phoenix. You can't really tell in this picture, but it's like
That's
a.
beautiful. That's
I,
actually another part of the symbolism of the crimson eagle too, is
mm,
that it can be viewed as a phoenix. So,
I love the phoenix symbolism, and I had a whole talk show about that and its duality and stuff. And last thing I wanted to maybe talk about was, you know, how the spread of fear, how it cripples and controls the masses.
mm.
Like they use the media to perpetuate fear, and you think, you know, keep us in suffering and lower vibe and lower realities, or
Yeah, I mean, it's not just the media. It's essentially the biggest pill for everyone to swallow in this mass awakening is that essentially everything that they've ever been taught in regard to the mainstream society is a lie. It's a lie that's built to create division. It's a lie that's built to perpetuate suffering because that's the only way that those at the top of that pyramid scheme can reap the rewards and the benefits and do whatever the heck they want and get away with it. Because they essentially have begun to believe themselves to just have a flickering candle amount of light. And so, how do they get power from the collective? They don't do it by allowing us to shine brightly. They do it by convincing us to dim our lights as much as possible, whether it's through alcohol, whether it's through drugs and pharmaceuticals, whether it's through and this may be triggering for a lot of people, whether it's through mainstream uh, psychotherapy. I mean, when we are told that we have depression, clinical depression, then we use the law of correspondence against ourselves because we go around telling people, I have depression, I have depression. And we keep reaffirming that same vibration in our life and we can't escape it because we're
oh,
creating a cycle.
I've got to totally riff on that.
Sure.
How I hate how the alcohol program, they make everybody, hi, my name is so and so and I'm an alcoholic. Like they make them reaffirm it over and over and over, even if they're 20 years sober, they're
Hmm.
still supposed to say, and I'm an alcoholic. Like, what a terrible idea to affirm what you're not in the present. Like,
Thank you. That
why do they
was
perpetuate that?
in my most important relationship. That was a huge argument that I got into with my significant other is that with her background, she kept referring to me as a recovering alcoholic. And I said, no, I'm in control of myself. I'm a recovered alcoholic. And I still called myself an alcoholic in that sense, but I said recovered in the sense that,
Past tense.
yeah, and that I had overcome that. And at the time with the programming, she just could not see how that was detrimental to my reality, how it was throwing me in this loop in which I felt like I would never recover. And I would always have that issue. But since then, I mean, I was in the military for almost 7 years. So it's really ingrained in the culture there to drink. But after my awakening, all of last year, I had maybe less than 10 drinks throughout the year. And then after January 1st of this year, I was like, I don't need it anymore. It's just not beneficial. It doesn't resonate. And I feel so much clearer, so much healthier.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, in Arabic, alcohol literally means body eating drug. So,
Whoa.
yeah.
That's crazy.
Hmm.
Yeah. Or and that it's called spirits because it literally lets spirits like in your body. And that's why
Hmm.
people act all demonic sometimes and have these
For sure.
personality shifts and say terrible things and stuff like that. But yeah, I totally get it. I had a similar experience with weed back in like 2012. when I moved to Los Angeles, everybody was offering me weed, here, free weed. And I started smoking it for a while. And then I was like, after about a yearish, I started feeling like I was not well. Like my lungs hurt, my throat hurt. I had smoker's cough. And I wasn't even doing that much, but I was doing a little bit every day. And then I realized, I'm not getting the same effect I was in the beginning. Maybe it's not beneficial for me anymore. I do credit it for helping to open my mind a little bit. But then after a certain point, it's like I really don't need this substance anymore. It's actually being detrimental. And so once I had that higher consciousness awareness of it and my body telling me, we don't want this anymore, we don't like it. So I basically stopped. And so I hardly do it at all anymore for years. But yeah, I just wanted to wrap it up with that. And we can wrap up the show. And
For
that was
sure.
awesome.
And on record, I totally agree with you. I've given it up as well. It doesn't resonate. I feel like it helps us get to a certain vibration, but then that vibration is still a very static vibration. So there is a way to move beyond it. And when we tap into that vibration again, when we're beyond it, we go back down.
Well,
So
plus, I think they spray stuff on it. I don't know what kind of chemicals they put in
right,
it to make it not harmonious anymore.
right,
Maybe natural organic is okay, but once they start spraying flavors and scents and perfumes or whatever,
yeah,
it's just not the same thing that Mother Earth intended it to be.
exactly.
But anyway, I want to thank you for coming on the show and your time and sharing your wisdom, and keep at it. I think you're great. You're a great orator.
I am honored, and you as well, seriously. And you're a very radiant being, again, a very powerful uh, leader among women. And I'm just so grateful to know you, Mandelyn. And if you ever need anything, feel free to reach out. In fact, if anybody watching this is struggling, know that I do offer spiritual guidance as well. So I'm here
Awesome.
for all. We're in this together. We're all family.
Yeah, either one of us. Yeah, I do coaching sessions and angel card sessions too. So yeah, whoever you resonate with, male, female, like, reach out if you need it. Whatever we can do to help uplift others and up level others. So yeah. All right,
Yeah,
everybody. Thank you, audience, for watching. If you were able to get through the show, I appreciate you. And until next time, everyone have a good night.
much love, everybody.
Bye. Take care.